We're going to circle back to what Paul Levesque said during the press conference this past Saturday following Bad Blood on Peacock about not seeing color when it comes to making these decisions as to who will be on these PLEs in prominent spots. And we got things to say about that as well. But this is Scott's baby. This is his core topic, and he's going to give us his thoughts right now. And I piggyback on that whenever he is done dropping the boom.
No boom. Definitely not one of those Costco guys. But we'll be doing none of that. No, but seriously, I actually want to start with the Triple H quote because I think he got it all wrong. And everybody's been talking about the Brandy thing, so I'll leave the Cody Rhodes thing alone. And I mentioned that last week. But as far as the quote goes, I don't see the color, and I do believe he probably does book like that. But at some point, you do need to recognize and kind of be like, all right, let me see what's going on. Who can I elevate? Keila, you've talked about Montez for a while, and representation is something that is so important, and we talk about it all the time. And us being a WWE show, we spent a good portion of a few shows talking about Swerve and Mercedes Moné and how important that was for those two to be champions over there. And you could see the difference. You could see how the culture really embraced Swerve, and you could see how he's taken it to a whole nother level, and him being a face of that brand going forward. When you look at the WWE side, especially with the men, it's like, who do you have over there? Who is that same guy over there? And to their point, like you mentioned, they don't have that guy. They got guys that are in the waiting who will be that guy. They have guys in the pipeline. I think as of we were recording this, the NXT show, it's very evident that there's a lot of culture on the way, men and women. It goes. I feel like the bad faith takes that we have right now, because there is something to it, but no one's been bringing this up for when WWE was high, when they were going through all. No one was talking about this. Nobody was bringing this up. But once it became a narrative, once it became something that they could use against Triple H in particular, it seems like, and I've talked about this specifically. They're using Triple H, the wrestler, as a way to bash and knock Triple H, the booker. And I think they're two completely different monsters. Triple H, the wrestler, was a nasty dude. Did whatever he felt like he needed to do to stay on top. And maybe he did. And the whole Booker T thing, inexcusable. But that's him, the wrestler. Him, the booker. How can we say that when we've seen him with the book? Like, he made Keith Lee the first double champion, the guy. Like, we've seen him push multiple people of color, like, throughout the brand. Like, there's a few white people who if we're just keeping it a buck, there's a few white people who he's like really behind. The Undisputed Era, no doubt. But the rest of the show, there's a lot of multicultural going on through there. There's black men up and down the card. Like, I just don't understand where or why the narrative would start when there's a lot of color on the card. And me, as a biracial person who looks white, I definitely understand how I look. I understand the type of difference that I look, that my sister looks. I get all that. But I'm very pro, hey, we definitely need the representation. We need somebody who looks like that. We need somebody who looks like Swerve at the top of the card. We need somebody who looks like Big E, who looks like Kofi Xavier, all different looks. Montez, Angelo, all different looks. Lashley. Like, we need all that. Oba, Omos, these guys. Like, we need all that. But at the same time, there's a lot of culture on the show. You've got Damian Priest, who just came off a long title run. You've had R-Truth, who just had an incredible moment at WrestleMania. Like, is he not black? I mean, he's not in the main event, but that's not act like he's not been a prominent part in main event storylines. He may be the goofball, but this guy has been a part of the show consistently. The New Day is a part of the show consistently. People want to talk about the PLEs. I'm gonna tell you one thing: the PLEs are not. They're not all white. Like there's color all on the show. And as much as I'm a proponent of black men getting the shine and getting the attention they deserve, like a Montez Ford, hell, like an Angelo Dawkins getting a singles run, let's not call this man a racist. Like that's essentially what it's boiled down to. They've taken the MVP comments or the Twitter likes where somebody says something about he doesn't know how to book black men, and taking it as him being racist. And even MVP's like, I never said that man was a racist. I don't know that man on that level. I just said the way he books. Like I do believe him when he says he doesn't see color. But I just think he's wrong in that aspect, and that you just need to be able to read the room and be like, yeah, maybe I'm missing something here. I'm missing an aspect of the culture right here. Because you get it with the women. You got all kinds of women on, like, it's all shades of colors on the women's scale. But on the men, there's an argument to be made. But using this narrative that this man is a racist is crazy. Like, let's not act like there's 40 black men on the roster. Let's just keep it a buck. Let's just keep it a buck when we're talking about this stuff. Let's just keep it 100 and lay everything on the table. Let's not act like there's 40 black men on the roster. There's Kofi, Xavier, Montez, Angelo, and that's a whole nother issue. But we know that there's a ton in the pipeline. We saw a lot of black excellence tonight on NXT as we're recording this on NXT. But again, to call this man a racist when we've seen the way he books, when we've seen him just book whoever's hot, we've seen him book a dominant black champion, it falls flat for me. And I'm one to call that out. And and that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because if I'm missing something, if I'm being blind to something, I know you'll call that out too. I just feel like this is something that people are using, and I genuinely think people are using Triple H, the wrestler, and the nasty things and the real cutthroat way he was, and thinking he's still that same guy when he's genuine. I believe that. I just think he's wrong. What he said was wrong. And I think sometimes you do need to read the room. But what I do believe is that this man is not a racist when it comes to booking his shows.
Labeling somebody a racist is a heavy thing to do. It is brazen. And I'm not going to call Paul Levesque a racist because I don't think he's a racist. And I do agree that when he was the wrestler in WWE at his peak, he was cutthroat. He did some underhanded stuff to stay on top. We know about the stories of him and The Rock as they were ascending at the same time, jockeying for position, feeling threatened by that. I don't think it was ruled by race. It was ruled by power and control and domination in a lot of ways of like, I want to be the top guy and it's not going to be you. And he had to share the spotlight. And when Rock was gone and Stone Cold was gone, we saw that reign of terror that went from 2002 to at least 2005. I lived through it. It was not pleasant. I remember the Booker T angle from WrestleMania 19. I was disgusted by it. There were controversial elements of Triple H's reign of terror that sticks out. Even the blackface with DX, it is a stain on his legacy that happened, that it made the air. But I'm not going to call this guy a racist. I think there are elements of what he does as a booker that provides a blind spot in some areas, such as him saying, I don't see color. You should see color. You should see the value of your talent, and you should understand their experiences and stories, and see what you need to do to course correct. As you said, NXT is cultivating the future that features a lot of talented black men and women who are going to be on the main roster in the next 2 to 3 years. If we circle back on this show 3 years from now and the same disparities are taking place, then we can have that conversation of what is going on. I will not call this man a racist, but I will question the booking and the diversity that we're not seeing 3 years from now, when you're building that foundation via NXT, which is so diverse, it's so beautiful, it's so many talented people of color who are being pushed in the main event. Heat Wave was a melanated show up and down the card. All of their shows feature talented Black people. That's undeniable. So Shawn Michaels is doing his thing. He's cultivating the talent and getting them ready for the main roster. And it is on Paul Levesque to take the talent that he is given and push them accordingly. Now, let's not sit here and pretend that Vince did not completely botch Keith Lee on the main roster, because Triple H pushed that guy on NXT. He was a double champion, as Scott said. He laid the foundation for a Keith Lee to be the next guy up. It wasn't like that guy was on the main roster back in 2019 and he floundered. He was over for like a month or so, brought back down to NXT. You thought the momentum he had would translate to the main roster. It did not. Vince effed it up. That's a reality. And a lot of stuff was out of Triple H's hands. A lot of things he built up, Vince tore down. And some of those people happen to be Black. That's a reality. So you have to really look at what Vince did that really kind of stunted the momentum of Black guys on top in WWE. Look at Swerve. Look at Hit Row. Look at that. Prime example of what he destroyed back in 2021 when they got cut. So once again, Triple H laid the foundation on NXT before NXT became 2.0. That's a fact. Now, my beef with Triple H is the Montez Ford effect, dating back to last year's Elimination Chamber. When a guy has a breakthrough performance like that, you push him, you build on that. He did not do that. And my concern is, in this business, I don't want Montez to get his flowers at 40 or 45 years old. He's in his 30s, in the prime of his career, can still do incredible things, has charisma and talent for days. I see it for Dawkins too. Both guys can thrive as single stars to give you a starting point of what you need to do when Melo's ready, when Trick is ready, when Oba's ready for that ascension to the main roster, and also continuing to find talent elsewhere, as well as you get ready for the Javon Evanses to make that jump to the main roster as well. So you have the tools, you have what you need to do in order to destroy this narrative that's out there. But what I am not going to do is call this man a racist, but what I am going to do is call him out when things don't look right in terms of what you need to do to properly push your talent across the board. NXT is a template. It is the example you should follow. It is there for a reason. And if you don't act on that when those talents are called up on your order in the next 2 to 3 years, then I will be looking at you a certain way and wondering, what are we doing?